Hallo zusammen und willkommen zurück. Welcome back to the official live stream of Gamescom Congress 2025. I look a little different than I looked before the break, and why that is, I'm gonna tell you in a second. But before that, I want to introduce you to my guests with me. This is, first of all, Jukka Laakso and Philipp Reinartz. Good to have you here, guys.
Thank you, a pleasure.
Thank you.
You are both speakers here at Gamescom Congress. We might dive into it a little more during or even after the format, and you can maybe tell us about what your talk's gonna be. But first of all, we have a little game show prepared. I will be Judge Dirk, and we have a very interesting case here to discuss. And you, the audience, you have to decide in the end if you gotta, we together, you and I, we gotta find the correct verdict, guilty or not guilty. This is the question everything is built about. Who's guilty of what, and what has he done, and how can he defend himself? That's something that will clear in the format. But the disclaimer I want to give before is that as this is a game show, it's some kind of debate format, if you want to say so. The statements that both protagonists here will make are not necessarily their own. That's maybe important to say here, because you guys prepared a little bit on what to say, and I know that sometimes having an opinion of your own and then needing to put out arguments against it is even harder than just naturally going with what you're thinking anyways. But this is gonna be interesting. We'll have a little trial here, and this is gonna be really, really fun. This show is called Will of Justice. Welcome to Will of Justice. My name is Judge Dirk, and I will have the correct verdict for you if you help me, because we need to decide if the defendant, Jukka Laakso, is guilty or not guilty. Against him, and his painful act, we have a prosecutor here. Philipp Reinartz will help me, prosecute him, and finally maybe help you guys and me find the correct verdict. So please pay great attention to what both are saying, and then be able to put a statement in chat. Guilty or not guilty? We will see that. This hammer here, at some points, I might hammer this if you guys are talking too long. Sorry for the audio guy. You want me not to hammer too hard, because this will be like, it appears to make a horrible sound. But
First people in chat are saying guilty anyway, that's good.
Guilty anyway? Oh, geez. So that's going to be a tough one for you. What have you done? This is the question here. You put out a statement, and that's a very controversial statement, okay? You said, let me read, gaming is the future of psychotherapy. And this is a very bold statement, of course. And people out there, like almost everyone, saying this is so controversial, you might go to jail for this. Are you aware of this situation?
Apparently, yeah. I've heard that before as well. So.
Okay. So how did this come to your mind, and why did you even say it out loud?
Yeah, I think it just came out because I've been basically working on that for the last 5 years. And I've got the clinical evidence to show that it actually works.
Okay. Clinical evidence, yes.
Clinical evidence.
Is that something that you researched, or did you just forge documents to make them look good?
It was done by the book in an academic setting with over 1,000 patients.
Okay. If you say so, then I gotta believe you for the second. But fortunately enough, I have Philipp with me, who has a bunch of arguments against that, and he might make a very good point of that not being true. Philipp, you want to take over maybe?
Yes, of course, because we did a lot of research and to find some arguments, and we put all this in the prosecutor's opening statement. And if I'm allowed, I would just want to start with the opening statement to discuss the points afterwards with you and the judge. So,
Prosecutor, you may. You may.
Honorable judge, dear audience, tonight the defense wanted to believe that gaming is the future of psychotherapy. It sounds exciting, maybe even futuristic, but let me be absolutely clear, it is not. Psychotherapy is not just a set of tricks. It is a relationship between two humans. It is empathy, trust, and presence. No game mechanic, no avatar, no reward system can replace that. If we reduce therapy to points and leaderboards, we reduce human suffering to a game, and that is dangerous. Psychotherapy has decades of peer-reviewed evidence. Gaming, a handful pilot studies, often short-term, often industry-funded. Yes, games may show promise, but promise is not proof. Should we gamble with mental health based on hype instead of science and research? True psychotherapy must be for everyone, but gaming requires technology, stable internet, VR sometimes, expensive hardware that leaves out most of the vulnerable people who often need therapy most. And let us not forget, gaming itself can be addictive. It can be isolating and harmful. Should we treat anxiety with the very medium that sometimes causes it? Who designs these therapy games? Tech companies, startups chasing profits. If mental health becomes just another product in the App Store, who protects the patient, or should I say, the player, from exploitation? Therapy is about care, not clicks.
Very good statement. Very good statement. Thank you very much. There were a bunch of accusations, I would say, that meet you there. We can maybe discuss them in order. What do you have to say about the argument about companies maybe seeking to make profit with mental health of innocent people?
That's an excellent point. I think we should look at it from a different perspective. If you only research stuff, does it ever come publicly available? No, you need to actually build that company in order to make it available for everyone.
Okay, but how do you, is there some mechanism of control?
What do you mean exactly?
The mechanism of control that, there is no actual exploitation, or that even the medical data, is used for even different
I get it.
activities,
Yeah, so basically, I think we should first distinct that there's wellness apps that aim for health benefits, and then there's medical apps that are tightly regulated by different entities like the FDA or the CE mark in Europe, and that's where we operate. So what we do is a digital medicine. So we jump through the same hoops as an antidepressant would, or something different, any kind of medicine. So that actually limits what we can use with the data. It's strictly limited to the use case only.
Okay, so control mechanisms employed. Okay, good. I noted that down because that's definitely an important part. And there was also, maybe Philipp, you can elaborate on this once again. You said that the evidence that there might be in those case studies is not that big, and there's a bunch of more studies or more evidence from years and years of psychotherapy, like regular psychotherapy. How would you say, Philipp, is that a problem?
That's also what we researched. There are no long-term studies that prove really that these games can help psychotherapy.
What do you say about that?
Yeah, I'm going to spin that around. Yes, basically, if we talk about psychotherapy, we're talking about a game that mimics something that has been existing, like you said, for decades. But we're a game medium, so why not use the strengths of gaming itself? So just copying what a therapist would do is not the right way to do it. For example, the way we do it, we actually tackle a thing called neurocognitive training. So we work in depression, so major depressive disorder is the clinical term for it. So if you look at a depressed mind, it's the mood symptoms that are treated by the psychotherapy. Whereas we come in, we actually train the neurocognitive impairments that all the patients usually suffer from. So the lack of attention, their lack of working memory, their clear problems in problem solving, and things that are done every day in gaming. As a medium, we take their attention usually, we use problem solving, and just what we do, we actually start training those, because at the end of the day, the brain is a muscle and it can be trained. And given the evidence that we have from the clinical trial, we actually saw that it also directly affects the mood symptoms themselves. So it actually strengthens the traditional psychotherapy.
But don't you think that this alliance between the therapist and the patient is very important? And if we have more digital products, then probably people will say, politics will say, okay, we don't need more really like more therapists that treat the illness, and we just let it do the app.
Excellent point. I think, like, once again, traditional therapy is good, but it's also limited by scale. Even though it should be accessible to everyone, it is not. There's a huge mental health crisis in the world right now. So I see that games are one solution that can actually help in solving that.
Okay. Games are scalable. That's actually a very good point.
But at the same time, it's easier if we have these digital apps, games, whatever. It's easier for the politics to say, okay, we don't need more therapists because we have these digital solutions. And that might also be a problem because then we don't have more therapists to treat the problems.
That is a valid point. I think, like, it all comes down to the scientific data. Can we actually show that we still need therapy? I think the data still shows that. Therapy is not going anywhere. It's just like everything is going digital. It's just a matter of fact that also therapy will go in some form.
I just want to repeat the statement that you made, the controversial statement in discussion here. Gaming is the future of psychotherapy. Would you then maybe be willing to adjust that statement towards gaming is part of the future of psychotherapy? Would you find that more accurate?
I would even put it a little bit wider, that gaming is the future of mental health treatment overall. We can treat different things with games than, for example, traditional therapy can.
Okay, I gotta note this down. I don't know if we can even send this, you know. All right. Philipp, what do you want to say? What do you want to say against this?
But don't you think that in the end, if you build a game that treats psychological problems, then in the end you have like 70-80% is just game stuff, and just a small percent of the actual app or of the time that I spend there really helps me treating my problem?
Actually, that's the perfect recipe. Because, like I said, for example, what we do, we train the brain because it's a muscle, and you can't constantly train. If you hit the gym and you hit the weights without any pauses, you're going to get fatigue and it doesn't work. So that's where the traditional gameplay comes in. It paces the training that pushes your brain to the limit by giving you a kind of a fun, engaging gameplay. And at the same time, we actually saw from the clinical data that immersion itself is the driving factor for efficacy. So the more immersed the patient is into the product, the better the outcome. And of course, games as a medium, they're more immersive than basically anything out there.
Right before the show, we had one talk that also talked about the potential positive and negative aspects on gaming on the brain, as in, okay, how does it work with rewards and how people might get addicted to stuff. How do you try to avoid that happening with those kinds of games? Like, if if there are negative factors to them, how do you keep them out of the game?
Yeah, so basically, of course, games can be exploitative, as we know, but you have to design it in a way that it's actually only just engaging and increasing the retention, but it doesn't have to monetize. It's a health game. It's meant to make you feel better. So basically, for example, in our case, we actually, first of all, we limited the daily gaming time to 90 minutes, but still actually the patients ended up playing it 46 hours in 8 weeks. So that's a lot of sessions throughout each week. And we measured gaming addiction as well. There's actually a scientific measurement for it. And we saw no difference, no increase, nothing. So it wasn't increasing game addictiveness at all.
Who is funding the games then? If not through, in-game purchases, you buy another session, you can,
Yeah, so
for your mental health.
Yeah, so like I said in the beginning, there's the distinction between wellness games. I think they are going to be monetized as traditional games, and there's companies like us that do the kind of prescription digital medicine. So the way we're going to be funded is by the doctors, the healthcare itself, insurance companies, and so on.
Is that something that the public is willing to fund?
I think it doesn't come down to the public itself. It comes down to the insurance companies themselves. Mm-hmm. So basically, the way they're looking at it, for example, in depression, if there's a way to reduce disability, so make the people work more, stay less away from the office, of course, that's interesting for them. They of course, look at the profits, whereas we look at how we can help people.
Mm-hmm.
And what is about accessibility? Because you probably need devices and stuff for that. Don't you exclude some people of the population because they are not game? They don't play games in their normal life, and they probably will not be attracted to a product like this.
Yeah. So first of all, our product, for example, it runs on mobile phones. So it's traditional mobile game in that sense. And I think like there's 3.8 billion players in the world nowadays. So we could almost say that every second people is a gamer. So we're not excluding that much. And finally, I think like it's still, we are more accessible to a more pool of people than, for example, traditional psychotherapy. If we look at like, for example, countries like the US, a patient might have to travel 2-3 hours in order to get psychotherapy, whereas they can just pick up our game on a kind of a, not the most modern mobile device, but still something that, let's say, 5 years old.
I do have an interesting point here from our jury in chat. One of the members of the jury says, let me paraphrase it, that those games might lack fun. Why would people still play it?
Do they have to lack fun? I would disagree on that.
Okay.
It's like usually people, when they think about health games or even edutainment, they think about gamification. That's not what we do. We do game-based. So a good friend of mine actually gave me a great description between the difference of those two. So basically, if I would break my arm, and the doctor would tell me that I have to lift my arm every single day for a bunch of times. So the kind of a dirty gamification version for that would be an app where you press each time you've done your exercises and you get a golden star and a streak.
Hooray.
Yeah, that's purely for retention. As for a game-based version, we would probably use the camera itself to track how high the patient lifts their arm and, for example, guide an airplane on screen that you have to fly over a mountain based on how high you lift your arm. Super simple example, but you still get the difference and you understand that the latter one is probably way more fun than the first one.
So it's more about the technology that you share with games that being made, more than, let's say, game design.
In a sense, yeah. My background, I've been in the games industry for about 15 years, shipped a lot of games on different platforms. And basically, when we started the company itself, when we were back in the academic setting 5 years ago, we had an interesting mix of researchers, neuroscience professors, and game designers. And it was a constant battle where the science came up with an interesting idea that this is how it on paper works to improve the neurocognitive impairments. And then we looked at it, and it's like, okay, if you have to do that 100 times, I would jump out of the window because it's so boring. And then we started to figure out how to make it fun. And I think the end results from the clinical trial show that we actually succeeded in making it fun and engaging.
Okay. And also one excellent point from the jury here. Where is the thin line, the actual difference between a game and just an app?
Great question. I think like a game has to be an experience. It has to be something that pulls you into the game world itself and immerses you there. So you kind of feel that you're part of that world itself. Whereas an app, it's just an app. It doesn't kind of change your experience that much overall.
So just one more question on this. So would the therapeutic aspect of it, would that be more subconsciously or happen more subconsciously, or is that actually a conscious process? Would you like actually like for therapy reasons play that game, or is that like at some point that you merely play that game and just like, you know, get therapized and you don't recognize?
Yeah, once again, talking from my, basically from the perspective what we're doing, of course you have to tell the patient what they're getting. It's like you take let's say a pain pill. You know what you're getting when you take it, so it's part of being a medicine. So basically, we tell what they're gonna get when they start the game itself. And they're gonna get therapy, they're gonna get neurocognitive training. And like, a good example on how we can actually even do psychotherapy in a game. So in our case, we dictated that the story itself, the main character within the game, is tasked on finding what is depression and how it can be treated, which actually aligns perfectly with the patient's goals. And therefore, we can actually basically give traditional psychotherapy education at the side without breaking the fourth wall, at least too much.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it is not necessary for the players or patients, or what would you say? What would you even say? Like players, patients, is that the same?
I've been actually changing that a little bit depending on the audience. I usually go with patients, but I think like the player aspect is as important as the patient aspect. So either works.
Okay, so the player patients,
Yeah,
they don't need to have like too much knowledge of the process of psychotherapy to be able to enjoy it and profit from it.
definitely not. That's something that we can basically teach. And I think like that's actually one of the biggest benefits in gaming is usually when you, for example, take a psychotherapy app, it's the onboarding that is usually the hardest part. So how does the app work? Why I'm doing this? And so on. Games as a medium, we've been doing onboarding, tutorialization for decades. And I would definitely argue that we're one of the best in any industry on doing that.
Very interesting, bold statement. Philipp, you can maybe.
I think we are all sure
agree?
that he's guilty. I have no more points to add.
Okay, interesting. Like, I want to give the jury also some more chances to maybe add on to this. There were like excellent points being made there, you know, excellent questions. That's very important that we discussed everything of that about this. Maybe just a side quest here. Is this because the discussion about AI, for example, that led people to maybe have a little more, I don't know if it's fear or respect for technology and technological process and how this affects real world and how the interaction between humans and artificial intelligence works. Would you say that like the general perception of people is a bit different nowadays with, you know, artificial intelligence and chatbots being so present and they being, you know, either more receptive to it because they're getting used to it or more skeptical? Is there like any experience that you made personally?
Not that much, but I think like it comes down to the setting itself. So where you come across with, for example, if you come across with AI on a medical setting, I'm sure, especially the patients are going to be skeptic, is they don't know where the data is going, what the AI is going to do with it. Whereas if it's something like more of researching something online and using AI for it, I think like almost all the people are using that nowadays.
There was an interesting point here that that said like some of the apps like ChatGPT, they tend to reinforce the beliefs of the user, right?
Yeah.
And this would be something that's definitely, I would say, is dangerous in the therapeutic context.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like we actually had a good discussion with industry friends yesterday on the AI part, and we kind of realized that the perfect way to use an AI nowadays is to use it as traditional secretary. So something that helps you but doesn't make the decisions for you.
Okay, very interesting. So we see some of the beliefs of the accused here that you might find interesting in finding the right verdict. Are we already right? So Philipp, you can make your last statement.
Yeah, my
and,
closing statement.
Your
I also
closing
prepared
statement.
my closing statement.
I would say
But it's short.
this is very very important, and you can then have the last chance to defend yourself one more time.
So let us be clear. Games can inspire, games can support, games can even help in certain cases, but they are not and must never be the future of psychotherapy. Because psychotherapy is about people, not pixels. It's about healing, not high scores. The future of mental health must remain grounded in evidence, in ethics, and above all, in humanity. Members of the jury, honorable judge, the defense claims is reckless, premature, and dangerous. I urge you, find the defendant guilty.
Your chance to defend yourself.
Yeah, so I think games as a medium overall, we're a young industry. We're like what, 4 or 5 decades old at best, and we're by far the biggest medium compared to books, movies, whatever. But still, as a culture, we just entertain people. We can be so much more. We can be entertainment, we can be health, we can be all sorts of things. And I strongly believe that, especially in the health side, we can help. Is almost everyone, especially from under 40-year-old, they play games. So let's serve them a way to get better on the mental health side by a medium that they are most familiar with already.
Interesting. That's all you have to say?
I think I'm good with that. I gave my points earlier. So.
All right. So, dear jury, I hope you paid good attention to what both said and are now in a good position to put your verdict. You can now discuss, and then I need your answer in chat right now. Guilty or not guilty? We'll see what the jury says and which one has the most vote. Here, we'll be close to it.
That's my favorite, Alpha Ranger.
Good one. So let's see. Guilty or not guilty? They're still deep in discussion, I can see. There was a lot of discussion going on actually in chat. I don't know if you like side-eyed it a little bit. That was interesting to read. I like this. Okay, so it's exclamation mark guilty. Guilty, guilty. We have 2 chats, parallel chats. It's Gamescom Congress on YouTube and Gamescom Congress on Twitch. Guilty of what?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Guilty, guilty. It's more guilty as of right now. Not guilty, question mark. The statement was, I can repeat that once more, gaming is the future of psychotherapy. And our question here, because that is a controversial statement to be discussed, is that if that is a statement that is true and he'll be able to say this whenever he wants to, and if we found out right now that this is a statement too bold and just false, then he is guilty. I would count. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4 guilty. 1, 2, 3, 4 not guilty. So we need one more. Let's see here. One more question from the jury. I don't know if questions are still allowed here. Not guilty. So we have more not guilty. So I say our verdict here is officially not guilty. Thank you very much. This is
not guilty.
This is the statement. Not guilty. Good. So let's take one step back now. Thank you guys for participating in this little game show. And congratulations to you, Jukka, that you have been found not guilty, even though it was a tough call. What I saw here, also with the discussion in chat, that was really interesting, that this is actually a bit more controversial than I thought, that there's a lot of potential to discuss this critically. And maybe we can just, like after having this discussion, Philipp, you are not that much of anti.
Really a challenge to find all these points, because normally I'm in his seat as well, because we are also I'm running a gamification agency, a serious games gamification agency, and right now we are developing a VR exposition therapy for school anxiety kids. So I probably agree with all the points that you made, but today I had to take the other side, but it wasn't easy to find the arguments, and at the same time I'm very used to the kind of contra arguments that you had, because that's also how I always have to explain the things to people that are doubting that it's something helpful and futuristic that makes sense. Yeah, and especially because I think probably in Germany it's way worse. The whole idea of having digital therapy is probably in Finland, at least that's my what I think of Scandinavia. It's probably more far ahead of how digital therapies are integrated in the health society, because in Germany it's still very low numbers of people using digital products, and that's also a problem because companies or even the state doesn't want to fund projects like this, because they say in the end we don't have enough users who would probably use the product, and probably that's very different in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But right now in Germany it's for digital products still a very limited market. But yeah, probably Finland, and I don't know if you're in how many countries you are already, but yeah, it's probably easier than in Germany.
Yeah, basically we're still in product development, so we're building the kind of a commercial version of the academic clinical trial version. But at the same time, it's actually funny that you say that Germany is not that good of a market, because looking from Finland, I see that actually Germany is a great market. You've got the program called Diga here, which is for digital products.
Yeah.
I've seen the numbers are not there yet, but compared to almost all the other countries in the world, the infrastructure is. So it's just a matter of getting the clinicians to prescribe it. But I think like you're on the right track, definitely.
Yeah, but Diga is very hard to it needs a lot of money and time to become a Diga. It's a long way in Germany. I thought that probably Finland. It's because I founded my first company in Estonia, and there was it took me 1 day to found a company, and that's one of the countries that you always say they are very digital. And I thought Finland is also a very digital country.
We
so
do have digital.
I thought probably it's easier there, but I don't know the health market in Finland. It was just what I thought, that Germany is always when we talk about digitalization, we are normally not in the first seat. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I was looking at more from like the business perspective in a sense.
Yeah.
That Finland is a small country. We got like 5.5 million people.
Yeah. Okay.
As in the market smaller.
Yeah.
Or too small even.
Yeah.
It's almost too small. Of course, it's our home market, so we want to support it. But at the same time, like looking at the first market, that's probably going to be the U.S. It's like one of the best phrases I heard when it comes to making something medical. It's like the U.S. innovates, Europe regulates, and China copies. So it's like taking something like this to the market in the Europe is going to take twice as long as in the US.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to be in the Europe as well later, but US is probably going to be the first target.
Yeah.
Even though the health system there, I mean, is also very controversial, I would say. Like
I
in
agree.
Germany, you know, you have universal healthcare. That's something that a lot of other countries lack. Would you say that's an advantage or a disadvantage?
It's an advantage, especially when kind of digital medicine becomes a standard. But in the US, it's basically easier. They're more open to kind of innovations than Europe, in a sense.
As in the people or as in institutions?
As for the people and
Okay.
especially the insurance companies and so on.
Okay. It's really interesting. One aspect I would also like to maybe elaborate on just a little more, because the question about, okay, how can this replace regular therapy? As I understood it, that's not necessarily what you're aiming for, right? It's like it's an addition to it, like another form of therapy when you can't get hold of regular therapy, or even when you need more than you can usually get, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In a sense, like I said, it's like if we look at, for example, depression, it actually applies to anxiety as well. So basically, you have the mood symptoms, so you're feeling down, you have rumination and so on. And then you have the neurocognitive impairments. And for the latter one, there's actually no treatment out there. That's something that is basically measured in a millisecond scale and adapted and trained. And that's where games are perfect medium for it, because we actually do track things in a millisecond scale, or even on a traditional game. We just kind of start training based on that. And at the same time, we see that kind of supporting traditional psychotherapy by tackling that other side of the problem emphasizes and makes the whole combination much stronger. And basically, can we be a standalone in the future? That remains to be seen. That needs a lot more clinical data, and we're not there yet.
But as you said, you're just saying it's the future. You don't say it's the best alternative right now, right?
It's definitely not.
Or in this game show, you said it's the future. I don't know if it's actually a statement that you would make.
I think it's part of the future.
Okay.
It's part of the solution. It's like, at the end of it's still a game, so it doesn't fit everyone. So we definitely need other solutions out there as well.
Okay, very interesting. As we do have just like a few more minutes more, maybe you can just give a quick run through of what your talks are going to be today at Gamescom Congress, because I think both are on different stages. Like there's a lot of stages here at Gamescom Congress, and we're only showing one of those here in the live stream. So maybe Philipp, if you want to start.
Yeah,
what
my
your talk's
session
gonna
is
be
in
about.
half an hour at 12 o'clock, and it's about exactly the project I was just talking about. So about this VR therapy that we are developing for 3 years together with universities, Fraunhofer Institute. And it's I think it's an interesting. It's interesting because the constellation is very special to have 5 partners from very different areas, from a VR company that is like more from the artistic side, I would say, up to universities or Fraunhofer Institute that are just tracking data. And I will talk about how we did this project, what we are doing in the next years. We are at the very beginning, so I can't show too much, but I think it's a really interesting and futuristic project, and I hope that it will be an entertaining talk for the people to listen to.
Okay, very nice. So maybe it's just like the usual. If you want to hear all of those interesting talks next year, you should come to Gamescom Congress and be here. Of course, I mean, we do have the live stream. I hope you enjoyed, but you get most out of Gamescom Congress if you're just here. Luca, maybe you could say what your talk's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I'm going to take a deep dive to the topic I was just talking about. So basically, how depression can be treated using a video game when conventional treatments fail. And it's going to be, I think, at 4 p.m. on the main stage. And basically, I'm going to show the clinical data that we have, talk about the patients, and I'm going to even dive into the game design itself, how we've came up with the idea, how we came up with the mechanisms of action that we're using to treat the patients.
Yes, and that talk we're going to actually have on stream.
Cool.
Which is interesting, and it's going to be, so you guys who have watched this format right now, you come prepared for that talk, right?
Yeah, I did spoil it a little bit.
You did spoil it a little bit, but that is okay. That's part of the fun. So Philipp, you gotta run for your talk that you're gonna be there on time. We'll have just a short break 2-3 minutes or something, and then we'll be back with a panel on the main stage. It's actually a panel in German with politicians joining us. That's going to be interesting. The panel's called Alle auf die Eins, wie Deutschland weltweit oben mitspielen will. That's going to be interesting. So thank you once again to my fabulous guests for this game show. Thank you for being part of the fun. Judge Dirk over and out for now. We'll see you at 12:45 with Know 'Em All. But in 2 or 3 minutes, yes, the next program on the main stage. See you then. Enjoy.